I've been loving the season, but I could tell you one fan base that hasn't been loving the season. That's Bengals fans. Joe Burrow came into the year with that little hamstring injury. I say that little. It wasn't that little. It actually was very effective at preventing him from being an elite quarterback the first couple weeks of the year. And then he kind of found his groove for 3-4 weeks. And then on Thursday, he tore the ligament in his wrist and is going to miss the entire season. The Bengals, I mean, it's never been more over for their 2023 season. Let's be honest here. So I think that if you're a Bengals fan, though, this season is over. Like, let's be honest. But is this the worst thing in terms of their future draft picks? Because if we remember, they had the terrible year where Joe Burrow tore his ACL's rookie year. That netted them Jamar Chase, which has been an overwhelming net positive for them, obviously. Say a similar situation happens. They won't have as good of a pick. Say a similar situation happens this year where, hey, their season kind of tanks. They end up having a really good draft pick. Does that get them a Brock Bowers? Does that get them a Romeo Odunze? Does that get them one of these other top playmakers? Like, in terms of the Joe Burrow injury, what are kind of your thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts, and I get the entire argument, oh, yeah, they're going to be able to get a superb tight end in the draft, or they're going to be able to get whoever, right? And I get that, and I like to hear people being optimistic after a big injury like that. But I choose to use this as an opportunity for Bengals fans to look in the mirror in terms of their team and say, okay, yeah, Joe Burrow's a freak. He's great. Jamar Chase is phenomenal. T. Higgins is superb. But I can't help but notice that our coaches cannot escalate us. You know, when we don't have this superb talent advantage, and they won't always, eventually they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. Eventually they're going to have to pay T. Higgins. Eventually they're going to have to pay all of these guys. And if the O-line keeps playing like it has, Joe Burrow's going to be getting injured a lot more in the future. I'm sorry, but the reality is we're looking at another Andrew Luck situation here. We really are. And I know that sounds like a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but it seems to be going in that trajectory. It really does. And it sucks to hear that. But his body is being exposed to all this torture, even when he's getting the ball out. I know he's not being sacked quite as much as Andrew Luck was, but he's getting the ball out hot and then just taking big hits because he's a tough quarterback. He wanted to play through the injury on Thursday night. That was obvious. And, you know, he loves the game. It's clear. He wants to be out there, but he can't. He can't. And the coaches are so afraid to bench him. Earlier in the year, we remember he was dealing with a big injury. They're so afraid to bench him that they'll put him out there when he's at 50%, 40%, and he'll still suffer a huge beating. And this is exactly how another Andrew Luck situation happens. It just is. This is the exact same formula. The coaches have no idea how to succeed without Joe Burrow on the field. So they feel like they are obligated to have him on the field all the time, whether he's at 50%, 100%, 40%, 10%. They need him out on the football field in order to win. And I feel like that's not just because the coaches don't have confidence in Jake Browning. It's also because the coaches, Brian Callahan especially, and Zach Taylor especially, don't know how to design an advanced offense that can make up for lackluster quarterback play. Dan Orlovsky tweeted, I want to say 3 days ago, he tweeted, the top offenses in the NFL, all of them have plenty of these three things: pre-snap motion, personnel and formation flexibility, and a heavy use of play action. The Bengals do none of that. Okay? And I know some people might think Joe Burrow does a lot of play action, but that's wrong. I looked at it earlier today in order to research for this exact show. And Burrow only has like 29 play action snaps on the season. And that's while he's playing through injury. This is when you want to be, you know, holding his hand, have him lean on the run game. You don't want him doing as much. You want the team to help him more because he's dealing with injury. But no, you're not going to run play action. You're not going to run all this pre-snap motion. It's going to be a very plain and basic offense. And you're just going to be like, yeah, Joe Burrow's at 50%, but we have Jamar Chase. We have T. Higgins. We can make all these great plays without advanced schematics. And it clearly hasn't been working out. I know they won a lot of games, but how are they going to win games now with both T. Higgins and Joe Burrow out? This is an offensive team that has been getting bailed out by talent time after time after time.
First of all, you just dropped an absolute bar. I will say that was a broadcasting masterclass right there. Second of all, you did make some interesting points. I thought the 29 play action snaps all year, that is atrocious. I mean, that is total incompetence on the behalf of the Cincinnati Bengals coaching staff. I know that's like what that averages to like almost exactly 3 a game. You get 3 play action passes a game. Are you serious? That's a crazy thing. Another cog, I guess, in this Joe Burrow story is, you mentioned it, the injury beforehand. He was wearing the wrist guard thing coming off the bus. Is this a situation where there was something kind of already there, you think, and they didn't report it properly? They didn't, go about it in Joe Burrow's best behalf to keep him protected? What do you make of that whole thing? Because I know that this is kind of getting to a big story, and if this is as bad as some people are saying, I mean, this could be really bad for the Bengals and maybe like losing picks or getting punishment by Roger Goodell. What do you think about the whole Joe Burrow wrist injury prior to Thursday Night Football story that's going around?
Well, the NFL absolutely needs to crack down on it. That is without a doubt. Injury reports are a thing for a reason. All right. And I know coaches might be trying to get advantages, and I know coaches are trying to maybe avoid media backlash. I imagine that that's probably the reason that they hid this from the media this time around, because they know if people saw Joe Burrow playing through yet another injury, that they would be really worried about it. Fans would be saying, oh, maybe Joe Burrow shouldn't be out there in this game, or, oh, you're really exposing him, or, oh, maybe you should be doing a little bit more play action, helping your quarterback out a little bit much. This is exactly why he's going to be the next Andrew Luck. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but that's something I really want people to start to think about, because it is a very realistic outcome to this entire situation. The Bengals, I really think that they did the wrong thing in terms of not reporting this, and I understand why. Like I said, it's the feel that you need to avoid the media backlash. I don't think it's as much trying to get an advantage on the Ravens, because I don't think that gives you much of one. Because, again, it's not like they were running the ball more because of it. It didn't really give them much of an advantage. At least I don't think it would have. I truly do think that it was just them trying to avoid what the media would say about Burrow in this one.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The media backlash and everything like that, and they also faced a lot of criticism earlier in the year. Oh, they should, like you said, they should have benched Burrow. They shouldn't have put him out there until he was 100%, because clearly the Joe Burrow we watched in the first 3 weeks of the season were not the Joe Burrow we're accustomed to seeing. So I think that this Joe Burrow injury has so many kind of layers. It has so many kind of things about it, and we're just going to have to see how it plays out. I know the league said that they were going to look into the events of the, reporting the injury, because like you said, injury reporting is so critical, not only because it's unethical if you don't report injuries, but it is for player safety. That is the main reason that, it should be so enforced in the NFL. So I think that's going to be a big thing as well. And then
listen, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is something all teams have been doing for a while. I mean, there's no doubting that. There's no doubting it. Now, of course, there's more of a focus on it when it happens with one of the faces of one of the top teams in the league, in Joe Burrow. But this is something that's been happening constantly. The NFL is yet to crack down on this. I'm hoping that the focus that people have on it right now is going to lead to it being cracked down on way more. But we can really only be optimistic, because this isn't just a concern for the entertainment of the league. This isn't just, oh, now I'm not going to be able to watch Joe Burrow. No, this is a human being that is trying to make a living, that is being thrown out there under the assumption that he's at 100%, because the team, I don't know if they, again, I really do think the reason that they did it was because the desire to avoid media backlash. But whatever the reasoning was, it still is a huge detriment to Joe Burrow. It's a huge detriment to all these players that's happened to. And it's been.
Let me ask you, if this happened to a backup offensive tackle, they had a knee injury that wasn't reported, and then they go out and they tear the ACL. You think this is as big of a story if it's Joe Burrow? So I think the fact that it's Joe Burrow will kind of open a lot of people's eyes, and it'll make the league pay attention, right? It'll make the league care, because right now it's pretty much a national story. So that is kind of the big news that came out yesterday about the Joe Burrow going to miss the remainder of the season.